yeah, it is Sunday, November 24th. At least that's what they say. A little bit before 5 p.m. Central Time, the best time. I am Victor Jones, but you're not here for me. You're here for the one, the only, the creator, the founder, Mr. Tom Sosnoff. Tom, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Mr. Jones. Excited to be here with you.
Me too. I didn't get the guitar riff in my ear. Did you?
I did not get. I usually wait for a little Stevie Ray Vaughan, and without Stevie Ray Vaughan, I don't even know where I am.
I know. What's a Sunday without a little guitar riff, a little Stevie Ray in your ear? That's
one of my biggest rock and roll regrets of my life, never getting to see Stevie Ray Vaughan and being totally bummed out when he died in Chicago that night in a helicopter crash on Alpine Valley. Because not that I was going to that show, but just because he was on my list.
Mm. Way to start this off on a super positive note.
Well,
how was your weekend, man? What'd you get up to? Were you out and about in the downtown Chicago, wandering around Wrigleyville, or is it freezing over there?
It's a little cold today. I was out all weekend, actually. I was at the Bear game today.
Where are you?
Bear down, but we lost in overtime to Minnesota.
Yeah. You're kind of like, what's that? Oh, man, I'm going to forget the reference. Yeah, Goodfellas, I think. The guy who is like always bad for the bet, so they put him in the closet.
Oh, you mean not Goodfellas?
What is that?
Mush. You're talking about Mush.
Mush. Yes. You could. Chicago should ban you.
Hold on. It's not. Mush isn't Goodfellas. Mush is it a Bronx Tale? I think it's a Bronx Tale.
It's one of the two. Oh yeah, it is a Bronx Tale. Oh, yeah. Underrated movie. By the
Bronx
way, Bronx Tale better than
Bronx
Scarface.
Tale.
Come at me, bro.
No. Bronx Tale is a absolutely great movie with one of the great bar scenes of all time.
Now you can't leave. Now you can't leave. With the two fingers. Greatest line.
One of the greatest lines ever.
That's what I do to my kids. That's what I do to my kids when they're arguing in the room with their toys. I go in there and I close the room behind me and I go, now you can't leave.
You want me to give you the greatest thing ever is you just make them hold hands, and that'll make them stop everything.
That sounds genius, but I don't know that I can accept parenting advice from Tom Sosnoff.
That's fair.
What's going on, Tom? Bitcoin 100,000.
But both my kids are relatively normal, and they were raised by wolves, so it is possible that something happened. What's going on? I didn't say what's going on.
I said Bitcoin 100,000. I said, I can't imagine how many, journalists just wrote the Bitcoin 100,000 article, and how many producers for TV wrote their Bitcoin 100,000 segment, and how many YouTube creators already created their videos. They're just waiting to send it out, Tom. Are they going to get to send it out this week?
Well, what's so funny about that is I just wrote my cherry bomb for tomorrow. And
is it on that?
I explained why that is the worst trade you can make right now, because Bitcoin at 100,000 this is a buy the rumor, sell the news. This is I attribute this to the Gensler bump in Bitcoin. Of course, I know, but I'm saying, it's overextended to a level that I don't think it can maintain on its own. This is just, Bitcoin. I'm guessing it could be down. I think it could be down at least a couple percent, maybe as much as 10% from here, because I think that everybody is bought into the hype, and I think it's a Gensler bump, and it's kind of dumb, but whatever. I mean, they're going to open up big tonight. Let's see. Well, yeah, Bitcoin opened down 1,000, but the S&P's opened up almost 20.
Yeah. NASDAQ up 0.2%. Same with the Dow. Russell up kind of big, up 0.75% so far. Bonds up a point, baby. Let's do it.
Yeah, the bonds got weak on the close on Friday, and then they got weak actually all afternoon on Friday. But then, yeah, they're up big tonight, and I would expect that bond move.
Agreed.
This is kind of a new high from where we were last week, 117.12. I got to think, it's the only thing I've been right about. So
we traded sideways. We just didn't go down.
I know, but they keep bouncing off the bottom, and you keep getting a point every single time on them, maybe more. So it's the only thing we've had on that's Yeah, it's the only thing we've had on that's kind of right. Also tonight, natural gas continues its kind of crazy rally. It's up 22 cents. That's a 5%, 6%, almost
That's
7%
two
move
Sundays
tonight.
in a row. Last Sunday, natty
Yep.
gas opened up 4.25%. Now we open up 6%. 2 Sundays in a row, man.
Yeah, and then finally the currencies are up big tonight, I think. I see the euro's up big. I don't know about everything else, but I'll take a look in a second. There's
All right,
so many.
let me
Yeah, the
say this
euro's
about Bitcoin real quick. Let me say this
euro's
about
up
Bitcoin.
big.
I don't you think you hit 100,000? Like if we were playing poker, Tom, you hit
Yeah.
100,000, and you know that's what the whole world is going to launch that article, the Bitcoin 100,000. Why wouldn't you hook them? Why would you tank it right at 100? Wouldn't you give them 110, 120, a little higher, get all the new people trapped a little bit higher than 100,000 before you roll? Why would you roll it right at 100? Get all that new liquidity on all that new sentimental value crossing 100, on all that new headline flow that's going to come out. Why would you fade 100,000 with that round number bias? I don't like it, Tom. I don't like fading
Oh,
the round number bias.
I'll give you that. I don't like round number bias either, but I mean, if you had to pick a spot, um,
Oh, I
I
would be
think
buying. Yeah, I would buy it here for sure.
you're crazy. You're crazy. This is a buy the rumor, sell the news. Everybody's been buying it. There was so much anticipatory buying that and the idea that it's just going to continue into perpetuity is ridiculous.
I agree.
Um,
I think you give them the hook before you let it go, though. That's all I'm saying.
before there were so many products, I would say they could have squeezed this thing a little bit further to the upside. But now there's enough products out there where you're going to see sellers come in. Like for the first time, I'm finding products that I can sell. Like I sold some Bitcoin on Friday through IBIT, just getting short the stock. I don't know. I listen, it's a tiny little position. I mean, for everybody, I don't think you should be big in there at all. I think it's a tiny little position, but it's just, it's tradable now.
Somewhere out there, Bitcoin maximalist is furious that you just said don't put everything in Bitcoin. But let me ask you,
Don't
since
put
you did
everything
bring
in
up
Bitcoin.
IBIT,
I wouldn't put anything in Bitcoin up here.
since you are, since you mentioned IBIT, I'm curious, Tom. You have been sort of the champion of wanting to apply strategic a strategic approach to Bitcoin, and now that there are options on IBIT, what do you think about the market? What do you think about its liquidity? And have you been partaking at all in the last week?
Yeah, I have. I don't love the option markets yet. I think given that it's a $55 stock or whatever it is, $55, $56 stock, it's been. I think the option market's too wide. Now I know it's got a whatever the vol is in there, 60. What is it now? 66. Yeah. I mean, it basically the whole week they've had it nailed at 66. I mean, I understand that if I was a market maker, I'd want fairly, a little bit wider markets too with a 66 vol. But I don't think the stuff. I think the option trading in there to date has been very speculative, and most of it's been on the buy side. And I don't actually like the way the options there are trading yet. I know they have half point strikes, and so it's good. I just think the market's got to get tighter for me. Like I put a lot of orders in. I did not get filled on a lot of stuff because I wasn't willing to give up an extra couple of pennies. So that's just my own take. I have been trading a bunch of stock in there because the stock to me trades way tighter than the options. So the stock trades a penny wide, which I kind of like. So
how tight
anyway,
do you think these markets could ever get, given the volume?
I think it should
volatility?
be 1 to 2 cents.
You think so?
Yeah.
You think we're gonna get there?
Yeah.
All
2
praise
cents.
efficient market.
Yeah, 2 cents wide. There's too many players right now. I think there's too many players. And this week you got more futures coming out. You got the SIBO next week launching a cash settled ETF index. You've got a lot of products coming out. It's not that big. You're only talking about the whole asset class is only a few $1 trillion. It's not a big asset class. So, when you look at like tech stocks, what are you talking about? 100 trillion or some crazy number. We talk about digital assets. You're talking what, $2.5–3 trillion, maybe max at these levels. It's not that big an asset class. I don't know how they're going to carry, I mean, what's carrying them right now is the high vol.
Yeah. All right, man. Let me ask you, how you feeling about risk going into this week? A little bit of slight drift last week, but not by much. Kind of a boring market. Is this where the saying "never short a dull market" comes from, or do you like leaning against these going into the week?
Well, first of all, it hasn't been a dull market at all. Volume's been good. I'm
talking about price action in the S&P. That's all.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about price action for this coming week because I think it's going to be a little bit thinner. I'm surprised they're up big on Sunday night because I thought this week they might start lower on Monday and Tuesday and then rally into Wednesday and Friday, being that they're like, kind of holiday type days. The whole, don't sell a dull market. That I thought that was Wednesday and Friday. I'm a little surprised they're up tonight. Also, especially the way they close and stuff like that. I didn't think you'd have a much higher opening tonight. So this opening surprised me a little bit. Let's see. I expect a lot of two-sided action. Last week on Monday, we opened down 50 and we rallied to unchanged. On Tuesday, we were down 50, rallied back to unchanged. And on Wednesday, we were up 50 and rallied back to unchanged. So we had 3 50-point reversals to start the week last week. So I'm not so sure that I'm not so sure you're not going to see more of the same this week.
Last week, I asked you going into the week, I think I asked you about Walmart. I asked you about a handful of the earnings, Walmart and Target being 2 of them. You said you didn't really like Walmart, I think, as a tradable instrument. But I think you said Target sometimes you like to trade. I might be reversing those. You correct me if I'm wrong. Target was just a nasty week, down 18%. I'm asking you, is there any part of you that likes a little scoopy here in Target?
There's a little part of me that wants to get my money back from the puts I was short Target. There's not a big part of me that wants to buy a lot of Target. I mean, I happen to be long Target here only because I got caught the 140 puts. Yeah. And I sold some 125 calls, I think, against it. So I hate my Target position. So I need a rally, but
let's go Target.
Let's go Target. I'm a contrarian, so I buy crap. I buy stuff that's down. So in that sense, let's go Target, but it's not it's not going anywhere.
I guess the key is if I almost think if I asked you if you didn't have a Target position, would you be selling puts or look to go long here? I'm guessing you'd probably say yes, or you'd be leaning yes anyway.
I would have, if I didn't have a position on, I would have sold the 120 puts in Target. Yes. And the 115 puts, no question about it. But since I already had a position on, I was already long. I didn't want to throw good money after bad.
I'm contractually obligated to bring up the semiconductors in some way, shape, or form. So I'll start with SMH, but you could apply this to NVIDIA. Weird week for these names. They didn't do much, man. I'm going to ask the typical anchor question. Can the market rally without the semiconductors, Tom?
Oh yeah.
Such a bad.
Yeah, it can. I mean, semiconductors, when you've had like the crazy semiconductors carrying this market for 2 years straight, can easily rally.
Fair. Hey, I thought you'd beat me down for that question, but you actually played. You played.
I mean, listen. This is a market. I don't know how anybody doesn't trade fade all the moves. I don't know how you can't be long like euro. I don't know how you can't be long yen. I don't know how you couldn't be long natural gas. I don't know how you could possibly be long the stock market here. I don't get it. I understand they're up tonight, but I don't know how you can't be long bonds. I don't know how you can't be short stocks. I just don't get that because that's not because I think differently.
Bonds.
Well, everybody's
long bonds, and I'm leaning short Nasdaq, so I'm in the same camp.
Yeah, the only thing I'm long is
Russell. Move doesn't work. I'm going to get run over with the rest of the tasty traders, with the rest of us.
Well, you should be long Russell. I'm long a lot of Russell. That's the only thing I have that's long.
I'm long a lot of small caps, but not the Russell. But inherently, it's the same thing.
Inherently it is.
Long stock. All right, what do you say we get Pete Mulmat in here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Keep it nice and tight. Pete Mulmat, welcome to First Call.
Gentlemen, great to see you tonight. How are you?
Hey, Pete. How's it going?
It's going great. Disappointing Bears game. How about it? Roller coaster right up to the end. You stay all the way to the end, Tom?
Almost.
No way. No way.
I've never stayed to the end in recent history.
I usually stay to the end, and it was but it was cold out there, and And after Minnesota kicked a field goal and they were up by 10 with 2 minutes to play,
right?
Curtin goes, "Are you ready?" I go, "Yeah, I'm ready."
And
I bet. Do you think the percentage of games that you stay at until the end? Do you think it's more than 50% or less?
Oh
than
God,
50%?
yeah. We're usually the last to leave.
Oh no. Oh
really?
no.
I would have. Yeah, I would have taken the under on that.
No. I'm not an early. I don't get up early. I never leave. It was cold out today. I'm telling you, I was underdressed.
I've been to games with you, and I think in all the games I've ever been to with you, I don't ever think you've stayed to the end.
You were only at a baseball game with me.
No, baseball, basketball, everything.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, no basketball. We stay to the end.
No, you don't. Anyways, what do you think, Pete? Are you on the long end of the bond trade? How are you thinking about interest rates before we go into the other stuff?
You know what? I'm a little surprised to see the strength of the rally here. It's interesting. The 2s10s curve is almost back to flat now. I think 2s are at 437, 10s are at 440. So I honestly thought that would start to normalize and steepen a little bit, which it hasn't. And tonight, that trade's not helping right now either. But from what the reaction, it seems that the Treasury Secretary not being quite so fringe in his views is what the market is liking. It seems like some of these oversold things, especially euro and Aussie and yen, got a little bit of a reprieve tonight. It'll be interesting to see if that sticks. If we can get above 105 in euro. I'm a little bit surprised at the move in the bonds, that we get a full point of movement off of that. But again, off the lower end of the range. So
I mean, you've been sitting on the bottom, Pete. It shouldn't surprise you. Anything can, at those levels, we're so oversold. I mean, if anybody wanted to sell bonds, if you haven't sold them by now, like, what are you waiting for? Like, I mean, they've basically crashed. So the amount of sellers left out there has to be really low.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see if they can hold. I mean, if they can build on these gains a little bit, maybe there's a little bit more to be done to the upside. But I honestly think they're going to have a tough time holding on to these gains. So it'll be interesting to see, along with, I mean, we're up 60 ticks in the euro, which is a big move. Still below 105 in the futures. I'm actually, which is awfully cheap. It'll be interesting to see if they can build on this or it just kind of fades back down. I mean, the trade below 104 was awfully exhausted last Thursday and Friday. They got some bad German growth numbers, PMI numbers, and they really shook the tree hard on it. Anybody who was long and really put to the test there was squeezed pretty hard. So maybe we find a bottom here. Volumes will get to be a little bit thinner as we go into Wednesday with Thursday holiday here and a half day on Friday. It'll be interesting to see if some of the people who've been short bonds, short currencies are going to get a little trapped, and there's going to be a little two-way action coming back in. Surprised to see, I wasn't surprised, but the Cape action of the Russell was great right into the close on Friday, and we continue to trade higher again. That trade continues to revert irrespective of term structure and rates, which I find a little bit interesting that it's really being driven by a different set of forces than just yield right now. So
yeah, but it's another one, Pete. It's another one where it hasn't had an uptick for 9 months.
Right.
Like when you look at the Russell ES Russell NASDAQ, I mean, it's at multi-decade lows, that relationship. So, I mean, 2 days does not even 2 days doesn't mean anything. Like, nothing. No,
they've got a lot of room to go off the right. You're absolutely right. So, gold's interesting off its lows. Copper's got a good move tonight too. It seems that all the stuff that was so beat up last week is at least starting the week out on a stronger footing. It'll be interesting to see if they can build on these or it sits here and then starts to fade later on tonight when the rest of Asia comes in.
What would you do? Would you do anything with natty gas here, Pete? Like, I'm terrified of natty gas when it gets moving like this.
You can't step in front of natty gas, Vic. You will get your head handed to you.
Oh, you mean to fade this move to the up? This again?
Yeah,
we're still at such cheap levels, and part of it was remember the term structure now is working in its favor. So every time we roll, we go into a higher set of prices. So if you go out to right now, you're looking at Jan. If you go out to February, February and March will peak out and then roll over again after the withdrawal season. But no, I would the ability to fade a nat gas move was back in August and September on some of the rallies when we traded down. This is one, and I think we've traded this before. I would not be in any rush to get in front of this at $3.50.
Fair. When you go into the week, what's the one or two trades that you like directionally positioning into? Is it trading with gold or fading gold? I think you were kind of looking that you'd said we'd get likely some two-way action in gold. It would try to rally. Has it done enough for you to start to sit on the short side here going into the week? Like, what do you like here, directionally leaning?
I actually I like silver. Silver anywhere. I got below $31. We got down to $30 briefly. That was an interesting inflection point to buy some silver. I've got some silver longs. I wouldn't mind if silver dips down a little bit. Buying silver and laddering some short gold, premium short gold calls against it. Volatility is still relatively high in there, even though we're off the 2,900 plus level. So I wouldn't mind selling a little bit of that if gold continues to move up a little bit. Silver, that ratio gold silver is sitting at 85. We got down to 80. It was near its lows. I would imagine we could probably see that trade somewhere back into the 87, 88 range, which means silver outperforms gold a little bit. So I don't mind having the outright silver longs and then putting a little bit of short delta with some gold calls against it. Yen, as Tom said, I agree with him. Yen, I think we've definitely beaten that up about as hard as we can get. It'll be interesting to see if I tried selling some Bitcoin last week. That didn't work at all, and they were short trades because I just didn't sit with them very long. Victor, I kind of am a little bit along the lines with you. Is I don't know if the big round number is enough to hold it. I think at some point we give back some ground, but are they going to get everybody comfortable up to 1,000 and 1,500, 1,100, 1,000, 110,000? God, it's even hard to say these numbers. I don't know how much more. I know it really is bizarre. But I'd be very surprised if this is the one time that the big round number holds. So yeah, it'll be interesting because
as soon as you cross it, it's going to be in everybody's news feed. It's going to be on all the 5 o'clock news programs. Why let them give them the hook?
Well, and that's it. And we're seeing a little bit two-way action of things like coin and some of the proxies. You guys talked about some of the new ETFs that are trading. There'll be interesting pieces that, for the first time, more and more people are getting to be able to trade both sides of this market. So it'll be interesting to see if that actually adds a little bit more two-sided trade to it. But right now, I mean, I tried to step in front of it twice, and I was wrong quickly, and wrong. One took a day and a half to be wrong. So I'm going to be a little bit more measured, waiting to see if we can get to that comfort spot at some point, and then see if I can add some shorts.
We did hear me out last Thursday on MicroStrategy, and you called it to the day. I think we were up $20, and you said we might be down $50 or $100 today, something like this.
Yeah, we were.
It was. I'm giving you your flowers, man. So what do you? Is Mike? Did they do enough damage? Can you get long MicroStrategy here this week, Tom?
Not with your. Are you out of your mind? MicroStrategy. Listen, anybody that wants to can get long MicroStrategy, okay? Because it's out there for the taking. MicroStrategy to me is you've got whatever the upside is, whatever you think the upside is, you've got 3x to the downside. That's the way I look at MicroStrategy. So I don't care what, like I have a position on in there, and I hate my position because I keep getting squeezed to the upside. But I think there's 3 times more downside risk than there is upside potential.
Okay, let me ask you this question. That's where I look at MicroStrategy. Serious question. They clear out Bitcoin. Bitcoin goes down to 20K, and you run a business. Would you not go straight to your board and go, we need to do a convertible debt offering so I can load up the treasury with Bitcoin? If you clear out the excess.
Every single person that goes to their board and says that should be fired on the spot. Okay. And I'm telling you, Michael Saylor got away with this, but because it's unique technology and he guessed right. There are outliers, and he's an outlier, that guess right and take advantage of the market, different things like that. I mean, CEOs, like the CEO of NVIDIA, guessed right, took advantage of it, levered up the market. But generally speaking, when this happens, very few people are able to monetize it, and very few people actually survive these moves. Michael Saylor skated, but he's getting greedy now by buying, by levering up at these levels. That's all.
Pete, it's always fun, my friend. Thank you so much.
Guys, have a great night. I'll talk to you next week.
Take it easy, Pete. Ilya Spivak, running anchor here. Welcome to First Call.
Gentlemen.
Hello, Ilya. It's good.
Hey, Tom. I'm on your side of it this week, Tom. I cleared out everything last week. I went through a bit of a portfolio cleanse. I took off all my dollar longs. It's been a nice 8-week run. And I took off all my bond shorts, took off my gold short, thankfully before the huge rip early last week. So I'm ready to sell some dollars and buy some bonds this week, I think. I'm not quite ready to do it now. I don't think it's confirmed reversals that are actionable for me yet, but maybe within 24 hours, I'm going to be on the short side of the dollar and on the long side of bonds.
Yeah, I think it's a layup here. I'm not getting out for a long time. So we'll see what happens.
Why do you have to jinx it like that, Tom? Why do you have to come in here and just put bad juju all over everyone's position?
You know what? The funny thing is, it's not really
a good thing I don't have it yet.
Because where I'm long this stuff at, remember, the yen was trading like 72. It's down to 64. It's not like, I haven't touched my position since 72. So it's not like, I don't have if it's up to 300, if it's up 3,000 points here, it doesn't help me.
Vic, remember on Wednesday we talked on the price of truth about the euro, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not quite ready to buy it yet, but I think it's bottoming, and then it had that one last squeeze. That's that confirmation. I didn't want to be in front of a thing like that, but now I think we're getting actually ready for something.
Let me ask you, there's not much on the earnings calendar this week. CrowdStrike, Dell, Hewlett-Packard, Best Buy are a handful of the names that report in the S&P 500. On the macro front, the econ calendar, what do you think moves the dial or creates vol, binary event risk this week?
So I think every time that we've gone back to what is the core story of the past 2 months, stocks have gotten wobbly. And that has a chance to happen this week. And the core story is the Fed started to cut at a time when the economy was not cool. And the markets looked at it and said, this is going to be inflationary. You're giving us this big, expansive easing cycle. And you see exactly where it's like the perfect buy the rumor, sell the fact kind of a thing. Bonds top mid-September, the dollar bottoms mid-September, and then for 8 weeks, the entire move in markets is take rate cuts out of Fed funds futures, take up yield, take up the dollar, as if to say, okay, all these things that the Fed just told us mid-September, they're not going to deliver on half of that because this is going to be inflationary and there's fewer cuts. The curve steepens. Then, of course, in early November, you get the Trump election. That only makes things look more inflationary. You can see it in ZB on election day. It has a massive down day. So you look at all of this and you say, okay, every time that you come back to this story, stocks get a little antsy. And I think what we've just done here over the weekend is we've taken the other big event risk, the Treasury Secretary thing that was there in the ether waiting to be happen at some point. That risk is gone. And I think the markets, as by the way, you and I talked about this on Wednesday, the idea that if the announcement is somebody that looks like a competent market participant that knows the way that the machine works at baseline, there's going to be a little bit of sovereign risk that comes out of the bonds, and the bonds go up. We're seeing that here. This is exactly what we talked about. That event risk is out of the way. This week, FOMC minutes, they're going to be relatively hawkish. We already know that from what Powell said. We already know from what happened in the statement and in the press conference after. The question is, how spicy is this going to be? Because Michelle Bowman didn't dissent this time. And she's been the loud hawk saying we really should stop cutting it all. So maybe these minutes are going to be a little spicy. And then the next day, the PCE inflation data gives you a chance to essentially confirm that and tell you, okay, 4 months now, disinflation isn't occurring. CPI already showed you this is an opportunity for confirmation. These are going to be thin holiday markets. None of these things should be terribly surprising or market moving. The market already knows these things. But because it's thin, if there is something that comes out that feels a little bit more hawkish, that could be jumpy. If it comes out baseline, all the excuse in the world for markets to go and say, well, they didn't dial up the hawkishness anymore. Risk is out of the way. Bonds up, dollar down.
Let me ask you this question to your Treasury Secretary point. I think it was in the journal over the last couple of days that it talked about Bessent advising Trump on a 3-3-3 policy, which is cutting the budget deficit to 3% of gross domestic product by 2028, spurring GDP growth to 3% through deregulation, and producing an additional 3 million barrels of oil. You guys are more than welcome to comment on that if you have any thoughts. If not, I'm more curious about the coin flip in the Fed funds futures for December. There's about a 51% chance of a cut right now in December and a 49% chance that they do not go. And with inflation data this week, is this kind of sort of binary where if you get something that's, a little bit warmer, or to your point, the FOMC, does this just take us from 50-50 to like 100 or 0 type situation? Is this one of those weeks where effectively, depending on what the inflation data reads, we either go to 80 or we go to 20?
I think the greater risk is actually the other thing, because that's what we've been baking in for 2 months now. For 2 months now, the hilarity of this thing, right? The Fed told you 3 cuts in 2024 in December of last year. How funny that the markets have been, bonds up, bonds down, we're here, we're there. Very efficient, except the Fed is going to end up being right a year in advance, because it'll be like 3 cuts if they don't go in December. And of course, the Fed has oscillated back and forth themselves, much less volatile than the markets have. The markets have thought anything between 6 and no cuts at some stage this year. So when we look at the actual likelihood of what's going to happen, the Fed's probably already talked themselves into the cuts they've done so far. On this one, they have optionality, and the market is 50-50, and rightly. The PCE number is very late in the cycle as far as inflation data. CPI comes out first, PPI comes out first. It's usually relatively easy to forecast for the markets once those initial numbers come, because you know what PCE is made up of. You can take CPI, PPI, unpick them, and get a fairly good sense. So I don't think there's much surprise risk there. I think it comes out basically as people expect, so a little bit warmer but not crazy. I think the minutes come out basically baseline, and the markets go, oh, good, it wasn't more hawkish. And what you end up with is the dollar sells off because they get permission after 2 months, and bonds go up because they get permission finally. And that's it. And you ride that until the Fed meeting in December, when you get a new SEP. And when you get the new SEP, then you reset. And the market doesn't go, they're going to cut 4 times next year. No, they're not. At least they're not going to commit to 4. Maybe they will ultimately. But they're not going to say in December, we were right in September, it's going to be 4. No, I don't see that.
Tom, what are your thoughts about, final thoughts for all the traders out there listening here on risk assets going into the week?
I get a kick out of listening to you.
I know
think
you
that
do. I know you
think
do.
that the stock market's up because Trump chooses a Treasury Secretary that has less than zero track record, and you have no idea if this guy even has a clue to what he's doing, even a remote clue, only because he's spent the last 10 years sucking up to Trump. So for some reason, people think that he's got some kind of gift. I completely don't buy into any of that, and think that he's probably a very average, if at best, he's an average pick, and I don't think he'll have any impact on the markets at all. I think
Such a weird thing to say. Such a weird thing to say. It's like, okay, did you have who would you have appointed that would have made you excited about a Treasury Secretary? That's what
I think that it's an average pick is a good thing. I think the market is breathing a sigh of relief that this is the kind of person you'd normally pick.
I do think that an average pick is okay for the market.
Yes.
Okay. But there's different kinds of average. If you're picking average based on loyalty, or are you picking average based on smarts? And this is average based on loyalty rather than average based on smarts. That's my point.
But
anyway, we can debate that forever. Right. That's irrelevant. I just think if that's the reason, I'm a trader, so I don't care. If that's the reason I think the market's up, then it should be sold. That's my whole point. That's all I was trying to make. Yeah, I'm not talking about,
I mean, on the equity side, I'm still leaning, and this sort of scares me, is that I think we're all on the same side. I'm leaning short NASDAQ, and that's my only equity exposure at this point. I wanted to get long Russell, by the way, last week on the pullback, and I could not find good risk reward structures to do it in. I went to IWM. RTY, the full contract is just too big.
You can't. The challenge with the Russell is that, well, first of all, they have micro futures, which are pretty liquid, just so you know, the M2K. Mm-hmm. And the IWM is very tradable. It's actually very liquid. It's the best of it.
Usually, yes. It's where I went.
Yeah.
I couldn't find it good. Products. I couldn't, like last week in particular, it was a little fun.
Yeah. You want to stay away from.
Get in there and trade futures options. Just get in there.
Well, you got to be careful. RTY options are not that good, and RUT options are not that good. They will trade. The futures options will trade 2 ticks around mid price, and the RUT options will trade 2 ticks around mid price. But you have to keep your size small, and you just have to realize that they're 10 times larger than IWM. So just be cognizant of that.
Yeah.
Depending on size. And the micro futures, though, are pretty damn good in there. The M2Ks, they trade 1 tick around mid price. So you can usually get, they look like they're 2 ticks wide, but they trade 1 tick around mid price. So that's a cheap way to trade. That's the equivalent of trading 100 shares of IWM for less money.
Yeah. Anyway, that one, in fairness, I did not look at M2K last week. RTY is too big for my risk management, but IWM, every time I tried to size up a call vertical in there last week, it came back either upside down or 1-to-1 risk reward, which just didn't look appetizing.
Yeah.
If I could get it at least 1.5 to 1, yeah, okay.
So IWM, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, IWM's trading for, let's say, $238, right? So 100 shares is $28,000. And in cash or fully margined, it's 14,000. But 100 shares is the equivalent of 1 M2K, which is only about $1,000 in buying power. So it's like 14 times cheaper.
Yeah,
and that's a more effective way, capital efficient. They're the exact same product, literally the same product.
Yep.
So on the option side, it's not. On the option side, if you're trading spreads and stuff, you're way better off using IWM, but you can trade RUT or RTY. The M2K doesn't have options. They don't trade.
Tom, take us out on this. CrowdStrike with earnings Tuesday, I believe.
CrowdStrike's an interesting. I trade CrowdStrike.
11% or something implied move. Pretty decent implied move. Is this going to be one that's on your sheets going into the close on Tuesday?
So CrowdStrike has been one that's been on my sheet since last earnings. Last earnings they missed, and the stock basically crapped out, it was down almost like 100 points, if I remember. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I want to say it dropped like $100.
200.
Was it 200?
Well, when it was all said and done, it moved.
Yeah,
$200
but on earnings,
lower. But on a day over day, it was like $100.
Yeah, it was like $100 on earnings. I mean, the earnings plus move and then whatever. And the stock has almost come all the way back. You know, and I mean, CrowdStrike's the one that took all those. CrowdStrike's the one that had all the issues, right? Remember, they took everybody down, Delta Airlines, everything else. Microsoft. I mean, they've come all the way. There was a $100 move on that and a $100 move on earnings. So it's been, and then they got, it was a classic, you know, they scared the children. All the investors puked all their stock, and they just destroyed it. And then they just took it all the way back to almost back to its highs, you know. And my guess is that whatever the expectations are, their numbers are going to be good, because I've been trading it lately, and I feel like that stock's been up $10 a day. And I only have a small position there. It's been very hard to chase it. Would you say the expected was 10%, 11%, 12%?
Yeah. It's like $40.
I mean, it's a $370 stock, $40 move is, you know, 11, 12%. Oof. On a holiday week. You know, all I can say is you better go.
You'd buy the wings.
$150. You better go $150 that way. I wouldn't even go 2 times the expected move in there. I think the upside probably is you're gonna find sellers at the old high. I don't know, maybe that's like $30, $40 higher. I think you'll get sellers at the old high. If it goes there, I probably won't be short it, just because this move has been incredible and they've been taking no prisoners back to the upside.
I don't know why we give all these companies these crazy valuations, and then every other day, like, everybody gets hacked. If everybody gets hacked, why do these things trade with such rich valuations? I guess the argument is, well, we could have more hacks. But if everybody's hacked, why do these things trade so richly? I say that tongue in cheek. That's going to do it for us here. Ilya Spivak, myself, Victor Jones, for Pete Mulmat, and for the one, the only Mr. Thomas Sosnoff. Do us all a favor, hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you here tomorrow bright and early for the European Open, basically, right? We start at 1:30 Central Time all the way through the day. We'll see you back here tomorrow. See you, everybody. Peace.
So yeah, there we go. So Bitcoin. So that is going to be one to watch this morning in an otherwise relatively quiet session. We had Baidu got smashed after they came out with numbers yesterday.
Yeah.